So let's jump in. I'll just go into this for a few minutes, and I think it'll help us think through this. So just a couple of frames. And I've learned this from some really cool people. One frame that's always helped me is that struggle is a part of life. In fact, there are two themes. Remember, Shar talks about this a lot. There's struggle and there's progress. You cannot have progress without the struggle. That is just part of it. So my trip down from Canada to Florida, it was full of struggles. It was parts of it were not fun at all. It was like trying to figure out kids and motorhome and trying to find my way and sleep, and so many things were not going according to what you would call not struggling. But within the process, we learned a lot. We grew a lot. Actually, one of the things we were hoping was that this trip actually helps us expand our perception a little bit, and it helps us connect. It already happened even on the way. We didn't even get here, and a bunch of stuff happened that helped us look at things very, very differently. And it came from struggle. And I want to connect that to time. So the topic for today is leverage over your time. And that's the most important thing. And this connects to struggle, this connects to hard times as well. But how can you gain leverage over your time? Now, the simple things we already know, like don't be distracted, don't do things that don't matter to you, or at least have a plan to get out of things that don't matter to you. But I want to talk about a couple of frames around this, and I want to start with long-term versus short-term when it comes to time. Usually, most people think of leverage on their time in terms of short-term. So what does that mean? And entrepreneurs have a tendency with this, and business owners or investors, they have this tendency that they'll spend a bunch of their time trying to do these businesses or these income streams, whether they're passive or a side gig or something, but they don't look at the long-term effect of it, whether they get into short-term rental or they do some Amazon thing or some other short-term business. They look at it as, oh, this is going to help me generate some revenue so I can invest some money somewhere. But there's a problem. I see a problem in that thinking, and I've seen it so many times that it's very unmistakable. They don't see it in the moment what it is, but here's what happens. They put a lot of effort into understanding a new model, yet their thinking is short-term. So what happens is they will do that for a little bit. They won't gain much out of it. They will gain a little bit out of it because they learn. Then they will move on to the next one. Then they will move on to the next one. Then they will move on to the next one, which generates a lot of stress and struggles and all that stuff. They are learning. There's nothing wrong with that, but it slows down the time that it takes for them to grow. And this is the other frame. Whenever I look for opportunity in my personal life and professional life, I'm looking for two things: quality of life and growth, or quality of business and growth of business, however you want to look at it. Both, it can apply to both. But quality of life means, so one of the reasons why I spent a bunch of money and came all the way here and want to be, it's quality of life. I wasn't getting that. And our kids were inside and I hated it. We didn't want them to be on iPads and phones and TV screens. And you kind of run out of things to do when you're in the cold region. Yes, you can do skiing and all that stuff, but if that's not your hobby and you don't like that, then you're kind of stuck with going outside for a walk and just coming in or doing some other stuff here and there. Even with that, you will probably be outside for a couple hours and that's it. So just today, we've been pretty much outside more all day than we would be in a week in Canada at this time of the year. Or in a couple of days, if not a week. So just that changes the quality of our life. It changes the way you express yourself. And it's like, for some reason, I slept a lot less, but I feel much better. Because I woke up in the morning, I went to the gym, and then I walked around, I got some sun, and I've been sitting outside and working. So that to me is incredibly valuable, and it has long-term effects. So quality of life, long-term effects. Plus, I'm also looking for the opportunity for growth, for my wife and I to connect, for our kids to see different experiences. Makes a big difference, even though it's a couple of months of complete discomfort to try to figure out how to do my work, internet, and all that stuff. But it's worth it for me. It doesn't even matter how much resources I put in it, because the effects of it are going to be long-term, personally and business-wise. So coming back to the business, I don't jump into any partnership or business if I don't see that I could work with this person at least for 10 years. at least for 10 years. That's my frame, because every relationship, every business, every model takes time to build, takes energy to build. And we're taught to kind of look for shortcuts. And shortcuts are there, but we're looking for ways to avoid the real work. And the real work is actually long-term. Where's your time going into? So after you've gotten rid of all the distractions, or as much as you can, then the decisions are very important. How are you leveraging your time? And I'll give a couple of examples. So for example, multifamily investors will keep their job for a long time until they get the investment path going. Now, assuming that this job is something that they hate, they're miserable there, they spend a good 8 to 10 hours in that job, they feel drained by it, and then they get out and they do about 1 or 2 hours of work around multifamily or some other business that they're doing, which is fine. If they need to survive by that, but good. But here's what they won't do. They won't even set a deadline to get out of it, not because they can't get out of it or they can't find another job that gives them more leverage over their time or something else to do, because it's just an emotional block. They're afraid if they let it go, they will lose their security. But here's what they're losing out on. What they're losing out on is all the opportunities that they're missing out on when they're sitting at that job. All the energy that they're getting that is being drained out of them that they could use with their family. All the energy that they need that they are using up that they could use to build their business forward. Now, so as an example, this is how I dealt with it. And this looked ridiculous to other people at the time, but it worked just fine for me. I studied for an engineering career for 5-6 years. Jumped into the job for 1 or 2 years. And so to other people on the outside, it looks like I spent about 7 years, 6-7 years in that career path. And all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, I see the potential to this path, but if I stick to this and I go to a job for 10 hours a day, even though it'll be very successful, it's going to drain the hell out of me. I won't have any energy for my business. I won't have energy for my family, none of it. On the opposite side, if I do something else that takes up less time and it gives me mental bandwidth, but even if it pays less, what could I do with that freedom, flexibility? I could do a lot. I can learn a lot faster. I can manage my time better. So here's what I did. It looked crazy to people. I just started driving Uber. They're like, how did you spent 6 years studying for this thing, and you jumped off and started driving Uber? I look like a crazy person. I'm like, you don't see something. It's in the beginning, I tried to justify it, but it didn't make sense. And I'm like, forget it. I'll just do my own thing. I started doing that for a while. The first couple of years, incredibly difficult because we had to drop the quality of our life. We were struggling, both my wife and I. It created a lot of challenges. But as soon as we figured out the potential and where it was going, things changed. But even in those struggle times, it gave me the space to leverage my time better. I focused on business development. I focused on my family. I focused on learning a lot more because I didn't have to do anything other than drive people around. I actually built a lot of connections because of that too. So that looked like a bad decision to people at the front, but that was one of the most powerful decisions I've made. In fact, I say it over and over, if it wasn't for that decision, I wouldn't have a business, or it would have taken a lot longer and I would have probably given up. And I definitely wouldn't have 2 businesses. So where is your time going to that will give you a high output long-term? And there's a system built into it. And I knew that if I got into business, I could build other systems and move forward. So right now I'm in a place where one of the reasons why I can travel more is because I've hired a bunch of people to do the same work that I do. So half the time I don't need to do anything. Half the time I do need to work, but that's one, I enjoy the work, so I don't look at it like work. 2, I enjoy being here and doing the work. And 3, I have enough time with my family. In fact, if I'm with them a little bit more, they'll probably get tired of me. And get annoyed by me. So I'm half the time with them, half the time I'm in my own world, which is good for me and for my own space, and it's good for the kids and family too. At least that's what I'm thinking. But making that kind of decision to hire people, build systems, even though I'm actually in the process losing money. If I did the work myself, I would gain more resources, but I would lose time and quality of life. So my decision is always, how can I do that? Same thing with partnerships. And like I said, when I'm looking into partnerships, I'm looking into where is my time going? Because I'm going to spend a bunch of time consistently with this person. Who is this person? Or who are these people? Are they actually looking at this long term or short term? Are they going to be with me through the thick and thin or not? I look at it a lot like a marriage. Are they going to struggle through this? Or are they just going to look for a quick output? And I've shared this before. We started with 6 partners. We ended up with 3 partners for those reasons, because a lot of them were not willing to stick to it for a while. The ones who were there, they are looking at it long term now. It's worth it for me to go there. And I'll share this one last thing that Robert Kiyosaki shared this within his book, is that people who understand entrepreneurship, they don't work for money. It sounds very odd. They work to solve problems. They work to understand how things work. And I'll connect it to what Nassim Taleb said, is that there are 2 major addictions, or 2 great addictions. One is heroin, the other one is a monthly salary. It's like the monthly salary piece is the thing that people are stuck to, because it has predictability, but business doesn't work like that. It might have some predictability, but a lot of output for business is long term. It's not short term. I spent half of my time in my second business. I don't take anything out of it because I know the output is going to be in about 6 to 8 months. But the other half time, I focus on activities that drive a lot of cash flow right now. So it sustains me. I keep away from anything that doesn't allow my schedule to be flexible, because that I lose opportunity for my family, friends, for my job, for my business opportunities, for a lot of it. So I want to summarize this, and I hope it came across well, is that any path you pick, whether it's a personal path, being in a relationship with your kids, with your family, wife, whatever, husband, or business path, there's going to be struggle in it. How you choose to spend that time and most specifically, what do you pick to do is probably one of the most important things to do, whether it's the life partner that you pick. There's a quote that Alex Hormozi says, is like, people spend more time picking a car than a life partner. And that's true. Like, we think very little about that, but that's your life partner, because we're not taught to look for it. We know a lot more about cars than we do about how to pick life partners. So how you make those decisions to dedicate your time for the next few years matters, whether that's for business opportunities, work opportunities, relationship, and these seem to be these core areas, and also your personal well-being and stuff. Where is that going? Are you making decisions for the quality and growth of your life? That's what will help you leverage your time, because over time you will see consistently, if you do something consistently, you pick the right thing, compound effect takes over, and all of a sudden you don't have to do a lot, because the results will be in that. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question: how am I thinking about where my time is going in my relationships? Who is it going to? Is that worth it to me? Because you are the only one who can make a decision. The activities that I have in business, am I doing those for long-term gains? Or is that just there because I'm trying different things? Nothing wrong with trying different things, but do I know the purpose behind it? Or am I just randomly jumping from one thing to the next thing, hoping that one of them will take off? That's not a strategy. That's just doing something randomly. And look at your well-being, the quality of your life. What are the decisions you're making that affect the quality of your life, whether you're in a marriage or with your kids or with other relationships? How have you structured your life that affects your sanity, your well-being, and all that stuff? Because if you can't maintain your health, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, everything else will crash anyway, so it doesn't matter. And these are the things that we don't think about when it comes to leveraging our time, because your time comes from your decisions. And some of the best people in the world, let's take in business, Warren Buffett, he gets paid because of his judgment and decision-making ability to invest other people's money. And he's shown great track record. The people around you will be with you because you create better judgment, whether those are business partners, whether those are life partners, or kids, or whoever. And you need to find people who want to grow towards making better judgments to leverage their time better. If you're not, then there are hard, very difficult decisions to be made. Either you're limiting your time or stopping your time with these people, or giving it a short period of time where you're trying your best, you're doing everything you can. If that doesn't work out, then you're out. Otherwise, you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life, and that's your life. You get to decide that.